Hello and welcome to the High Conflict Co-Parenting live Q&A. So I've got a few questions here that some of you have submitted. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment box below, but make sure it's maybe only a sentence long so I can read it. If it's too long, then I won't be able to read your question. Hello there. So the first question is, how do you avoid looking like you refuse to communicate when you don't ever want to engage or respond when you know judges don't like refusing to communicate? So just checking before I answer, can you hear me okay? Just write yes if you can hear me. Can you hear me okay? Just write yes if you can, or no if you can't, I guess. But with this question, how do you avoid looking like you refuse to communicate? So you need to communicate. Excellent, great, I'm glad you can hear. You need to communicate only, as you know, about the children, the health, well-being and safety. If your high conflict ex is calling you all kinds of times, texting you ridiculous things, being inappropriate with the communication, I mean, usually they do find or try and find things that are excuses to communicate with you. But unless it's an emergency or about their well-being and safety, there is nothing to engage on, okay? It could be something that they are disguising as a real need for the child, but you're going to have to suss out on a case-by-case basis what warrants a response. It could just be one word, it could be a thumbs up just to acknowledge it. So judges aren't looking at the fact that you're not communicating and being best buddies. You're not supposed to be best buddies. It's never going to be that way. Don't pretend and don't fake it. If it's to do with the children, respond. If it's something that's nonsense, again, you just need to find out and discern yourself whether it warrants a response, whether it's an emergency, because the response may not be required. It could be the next day or the week later or nothing. It might just be to acknowledge the statement, whatever it may be. But as long as you make sure you're communicating on the important things, that's all that matters. On the silly things, the pathetic things, I don't think a judge is going to be looking at those and looking at you as not complying to the orders or that you don't communicate. Your high conflict ex is going to want to paint you out to be the bad guy, the abuser, the abusive one, the neglectful one, whatever it may be. You're just going to have to discern on a case-by-case basis that the communication, is it warranted, is it an emergency, does it need a response? Usually these things don't need a response, and it could be something like, oh, I need to come and get the child's whatever it may be. Well, get a backup at your own home. It's not an emergency. There's no lunchbox. Go and buy one. Things like that. Okay. Someone else asked, do children to a certain point and age realize that a narcissistic parent is strange? So it depends on the age of the child. Okay, I'll just get to your question, Lottie, because I'll lose it otherwise, and I'll get back to this other question. So your child is 7 and her dad writes letters to her and she doesn't want to reply even though she misses him. It's in the agreement he can communicate by letter. Can this be used against you? So I'm assuming she doesn't see him physically. It's only via letter from what you've said. I don't know if you can confirm that. Does she see him face to face, or is it literally that he's in another place from you? If he's in another place from you and she doesn't want to communicate, you shouldn't force her. And I don't think it will go against you, but I think you should document this, maybe send him an email and just say, you know, whatever her name is, didn't want to respond. I didn't want to force her because, you know, I want her to make her own decisions. He's in another country. Yeah, so see it this way. If you force her, you are going to be very similar to him. So I wouldn't force her. She's old enough to decide if she wants to or not, but I would document it each and every time there's a communication. Send him an email and just say, X, you know, whatever your daughter's name is, didn't want to reply. I did ask her, but she didn't want to. Then it's documented. It's not like you're stopping her. He'll probably say you stopped her, you told her this, told her that, but It won't go against you because you've asked the child. You're not going to force her, you're encouraged, but that's it. You're not going to force her to do that because she's going to see you as, you know, someone who maybe she can't go to if she doesn't want to do certain things or say certain things. So you're her safe place. Hold that safe space for her. Hold the space, acknowledge her feelings and emotions. Let her know that whatever she wants to do is okay, and that's fine. Okay. So yeah, children of a certain point realize that the narc parent is strange. It depends on their age, but they will notice that they get treated a certain way, or they may get treated differently to their siblings, or that they have to walk on eggshells, that they cannot be themselves. You're welcome, Lottie. They cannot be themselves, and that they get maybe criticized a lot. They will express to you how they feel when they are with the other parent, and you know those feelings because you've been in that situation yourself, so you'll be able to pick up on kind of the behaviors judging by what your children say. I'm not sure on the age of your kids, but yes, children are very aware. They do know. They don't know necessarily labels, but they know I get picked on if I do something wrong. I get forced to do this or eat this. I am not allowed to cry, things like that. So they do know, and it depends on the age of the child, but using child-appropriate language and age-appropriate language is the way to go. And that's what I cover a lot in my group sessions, my group coaching sessions with my clients there, because they're navigating from children who are like 5, 6 up to 15, 16. Yeah, your child is 5, you want to be able to protect her. Yeah, that's what we want. And, you know, as mothers, generally it's the mum who I'm always addressing here. We naturally want to protect our children because we know exactly what they're going to get because we've experienced it ourselves. It's all about having the tools yourself to teach your child about boundaries, about protecting her energy, about thinking critically, and protecting her as best you can emotionally, because you're going to have to counter everything that comes from the other home, and you can never prepare for it enough, in my opinion, because they are going to come back and start asking questions and wanting answers. And you're going to have to provide them in the right way, and not in a way that's going to cause maybe additional trauma, but in a way that empowers the child as well. I hope that helps. Someone said, how do you get them to be on board with parenting style or approaches to continuity? So you don't necessarily get them on board, but you make it appear like if they're not, it's going to make them look bad. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense. They will not be on board, they're not going to be on board, but you craft certain things, or when you make suggestions, or when you're trying to negotiate, you word it and craft it in a way that makes them appear in a light that they don't want to appear in, if they do not agree. So that's about being strategic. That's the tools that I work on with my clients to help them with that on a case-by-case basis, depending on the situation, because there is a way to get them to be on board without them agreeing to be on board, if that makes sense. River Marie, can you give an example? An example to what was it? Your 5-year-old daughter, protecting her. I think you're the person who asked about that. An example is you are who you are, and they see you as their first teacher. You and the other parent are their first teachers. They watch and observe, and they know a lot more than we give them credit for. At 5, she will probably know you as the emotionally safe and healthy parent. So modelling boundaries, modelling her being autonomous and making decisions for herself, getting her to think critically for herself. I think that's what you're asking, but then you've just said, how do you get them on board? Too much to say here in the quick live Q&A, but that's what I go through with my group clients. It's always on a case-by-case basis, and it depends on the situation, but we work on that together. It's basically in a way to make them feel like they have no other choice but to be on board without them agreeing to be on board. very hard to explain without knowing the specific situation as well. But yeah, the whole thing without, because I'm always going to disagree to what you're saying and what you suggest, but it needs to be that they are going to look and appear to be a bad parent if they do not. And it's the fear of appearing to be who they really are that forces them into a corner, if that makes sense. So I hope that helped you. Send me a DM if you want more information on my group and how that may be able to help you with where you currently are at, especially with the age of your child and everything like that. So they always say everything went perfectly while our daughter was with them. I'm worried I'm not getting the whole story. So this is the thing. Your child generally is going to be the perfect child at the other home. You are the emotionally healthy, safe parent. The other parent is not emotionally healthy or safe. Just like you learnt to walk on eggshells and not be yourself. You're very welcome, River Marie. Just like you learnt to walk on eggshells and not be yourself, your child is in the same position. So everything did go perfectly because they had to be a little robot. I hope that makes sense. And I had this situation recently. A very good friend of mine was asking me this very question, where the child displays this behavior in the home, but with the dad, because she asked the dad, does our child do this? And the dad was oblivious and like, no, they don't do that. So it makes you feel like you're doing something wrong, whereas it's not that the child doesn't do it because you're so great. The child is not doing it because they're not allowed to. Okay, there's going to be a lot of backlash, so they're not allowed to. They're not free to be who they are. Okay, how do you deal with new partner dynamics? Again, this is something I go through in my group coaching with the women there. My short answer is usually they do go for people who are kind, caring, compassionate and loving, so you know that your children are in safe hands. But dealing with new partner dynamics, it depends on the nature of your relationship with this new partner, whether you've met them, not met them, whether you want to meet them, what your children say about this new person, if they feel comfortable with them or if there's something dodgy going on. But again, there's more support on that within my group, because sometimes as well, the new partner has been around for a while but only recently been introduced. So it's also dealing with that as well, and how comfortable you are with that situation, and also how you approach wanting to reach out to them, especially if you've been kept away and apart, or your high conflict ex is kept a distance and force you not to meet up, if that makes sense. Because of course, if you know certain things, they just don't want you to go and meet this other new supply, because it threatens their game, basically. A few questions that came up. My son often tells me the whole story. I don't communicate this to his dad, though, as he will make sure he doesn't tell me. Yes, there's nothing to communicate to your son's dad. I don't know what you would tell your son's dad. Yeah, I think staying as quiet as possible and keep it very separate is my opinion. Because he said he will make sure he doesn't tell you. Yes, they love to keep secrets with their children and force the children to keep secrets away, because mummy will be upset or angry at you, whatever lies they want to make up. So your child is put in a very difficult position. So just be aware of that. Alamaz, -7, she's constantly scared to piss him off, to the point where she doesn't say I love you when I call her. When she's with him, she's like a robot. I understand now that she's doing this to survive. Yeah. Remember when you were in that situation yourself, where you had to be in this little box because it was easier and safer for you, because the backlash is not worth it emotionally, physically, mentally. And that was you as an adult. A little child who doesn't have any maybe ways to express themselves and can't articulate what they're experiencing and what they're going through they will shut down very quickly and easily because, yes, they're scared of being told off and reprimanded, because it's not nice being told off and it's not a good feeling, and they will connect that with love as well and approval. Oh, if I'm being told off, then this person maybe doesn't love me, so I need to do everything within my power to not be told off. And again, in my group coaching, we go through how to hold space for your children, how to manage and help them with their own emotions as well, and support them in the best way possible, because they need those tools. They're going to have a parent. You got to divorce and separate from this person. Yes, you still have to deal with them. They're going to have this parent for life, depending on if they decide to limit contact or go no contact when they're old enough to decide for themselves. But in the meantime, you're going to have to support them and provide them with the tools necessary to navigate this. Yeah, you used to think your child didn't respect or like you. No, she just feels safe with you to be herself and to express. And especially when they come back from the other home, they've bottled everything up. So then they can just it's like opening a Coke can or something. And they can release the pressure, and you're going to get it in all kinds of behaviours and backlash. Yes, and River Marie, you said the same. Mine told me it's because she's scared even though he doesn't hit her. Well, how many of us here were not hit, yet you still were in fear? Think about that. You don't have to be scared of someone just because they're physically violent. This, it's also the threat of other emotional abuses and verbal abuse and intimidation that puts too much fear in you anyway, let alone any physical fear of violence. Someone said, Hot Mess Mummy Chronicles, 100% my ex has the kids for 4 days a month, and my ex brags about how easy they are and how they don't listen to me because, kids are like walking on eggshells over there. Yeah, 4 days a month is nothing. That's not parenting, that's fun time. You can be Disneyland parent for 4 days of the month. Anyone can be great for 4 days of the month. That's not parenting, that's visiting. And that's fun times. Okay, so, yeah. Talking out of his behind. Sorry. Okay. Are there any steps to prove their actions in a court of law? My children beg not to go there. So I'm not sure. You might be on the live. I might have seen your name, Lexi I think. So are there any steps to prove their actions in a court of law? And your children are begging you not to go there. I don't know where you're at, whether you're divorced or whether you have parenting orders in place or whether you're going through the court process right now. Again, this is what I coach my clients on within the group, on the strategy and tools and how to go about and navigate this with your lawyer, if you have a lawyer, or if you're self-representing, how to go about proving behaviours. It's not about using the N-word. I always say not that N-word, the other N-word. In this community, we know what the N-word is. Don't use the word, talk about behaviours and the outcome of behaviours as well that you observe for yourself and that your children tell you about. I hope that helps and answers that question for you. If you want more, please DM me about that. More information. Kids are smart and eventually notice who is the problem. Yeah, that's right. Any other questions? I've got one more question here that I'm going to read out before I sign off. Seth Dunlop, the bottling up, yes, I get this. When he comes back from dad's, it all comes out. Yeah, this is why I teach my clients, we need to kind of have this like decompression chamber for children when they come back from the other home, because in the other home there is a different parenting style. Rules, boundaries, whatever it may be, whatever you want to call them, they need to decompress, and it's different for different children how they choose to do that, and you need to support them through that and help them and hold space and help them manage their own emotions, because yes, it is like being in a pressure cooker, as you will remember when you were in that relationship. And when you got times away from this person, when maybe they went to work or they were away for business or something, and how you could just be yourself and drop your shoulders down and take a big deep breath, or whenever you went away from the home, And then there was the prospect of coming back, knowing that, or when they were going to be coming home, that you can't be happy, you can't be how you naturally want to be. You have to be on eggshells and aware of their mood, and it's stressful and it's unpleasant. And for children, it's probably 10 times worse for children, because at least as adults, we don't understand at that point what we're dealing with, but we're grown. For children, and it's someone who's supposed to love you and not treat you in the way that they're treating them, it can be very hard and difficult. Okay. My ex is fighting for 50-50 custody, and it's so hard to explain this kind of abuse to the court system. He's incredibly likable. River Marie, yes, I'm creating some resources on this very thing, dealing with third parties and communicating with them. And again, this is what I go through with in my group support. It's not a very widely known topic, unfortunately, even though you see a lot of people in this community talking about it now, and it's getting not more attention, it's just more and more people are becoming aware, which is great. It's going to take a long time for that to trickle down to the family court system, unfortunately. But yes, I understand the frustration, and it's hard explaining the abuse. Sometimes they even tell you and advise you, especially if there's no physical abuse, to not even mention abuse at all, which is mind-boggling, but it depends on your lawyer, it depends on their experience, and it depends on their actual interest in your case. ML Beastie, I've got videos on trauma bonding. You might want to have a look at that, or just Google trauma bonding. There are a lot of ways to break the trauma bonds, but it has to be an intentional thing that you want to do and you need to do. If you continue to look at their social media, you haven't got them blocked, then it's not really going to help you to move forward. Although I don't know if you share children or not. I really want to stop my son's dad from calling. I don't know how he's going to affect him, even though he knows the truth. So I don't know whether you mean calling you or calling your son. Can you elaborate there? You really want to stop your son's dad from calling. If it's you, I have some resources on that. I don't know if you have the perfect response script. Actually, the perfect response script is for pick up and drop off. That's for face-to-face. There are a lot of things you can do to keep this person at a distance. I have a short course on the foundations of high conflict co-parenting. DM me if you want some information on that. If you mean your son, it depends on the age of your son as well. And you don't know how it's going to affect him, even though he knows the truth. How it's going to affect your son. Again, helping your children with their emotions, supporting them through this is what I go through in the group. And resources on supporting your child. I don't know the age of your son. It all depends on their age. Excuse me. Okay, calling your son, Regina. Yes. I don't know if you have that court ordered, when they can communicate. If it's court ordered, then stick to the court orders and set some boundaries around that. If it's not court ordered, then you need to set some boundaries around that anyway, with your son and with your high conflict ex. Yeah, extending the control. That's what the phone calls are all about. Extending control, asserting control, and getting in your face as much as they can. He's 7. Yeah, no, set some boundaries. And I don't know if you have a court order in place, but there should be set days and set times when they can communicate, not all the time, because he just wants to stay in your home. That's what I teach my clients about, having this safe distance buffer and to have this bubble of protection around you, so they are not entering your home energetically. They don't have to physically be in your home, but calling all the time is staying in your face and causing chaos and havoc, which is what they want. Okay, last question. How to handle a new baby coming in on the other side and a history of overstepping. Yeah, so if you have a new baby, who's coming out into this world, the great thing is you are preparing now for this. And I don't know if you're still in the relationship or not, but prepare ahead of time, know what you've got ahead of you, get things in place. I mean, obviously if it's a new baby, you're going to be focusing on being a new mum. a key tip I can give you is children aren't that exciting to these kinds of people until they're like 3, 4, when they can engage, and they're more interesting and more fun, and they can be flaunted around and are impressionable. But prepare yourself now with all the tools, all the resources, because there is a pattern to their behaviour. They very rarely deviate from it, so know what you're going to have ahead of you and prepare as best you can. Alright, so that's the end of the live Q&A. I'll be back here next week, same time. I'll do a post or story where you can submit any questions that I haven't answered, or if you have any other questions. And just to remind you that I'm creating some resources around dealing with third parties and how to communicate your experience, because I know how difficult it is, and people don't know about this topic. It's very obscure, people don't understand, and even if you do explain, they think you're just being dramatic, overly sensitive, or whatever it may be. So you need to be able to communicate in a way that's effective and gets the message across without sounding crazy or high conflict yourself. Okay? You're very welcome. Have a wonderful evening or day wherever you are, and I will see you next week. Please DM me if you'd like to know anything about my course or my program, or any resources that I have coming out very soon. And I will see you soon. Bye bye.